In the shadowed hills of Bosnia, a bell tolls one final time, its echo fading into the fog. The convent of St. Euphemia clings to a rocky slope, its stone walls etched with centuries of prayer. Inside, 18 nuns kneel before a flickering altar, their voices weaving a hymn that trembles with urgency. It's 1464, and the world beyond their sanctuary is a battlefield scarred by conquest. Their lips move, chanting words of salvation, but tonight those words carry the weight of dread. Outside, the horizon glows with firelight, not from dawn's gentle rise, but from the crimson banners of the Ottoman army fluttering ominously under a darkening sky. The empire advances relentlessly, conquering villages and strongholds with disciplined force. The sisters know the tales: towns reduced to ashes, priests impaled, women taken and sold into slavery. They've prayed for deliverance, but faith is no armor against swords. Sister Anna, 22 and newly vowed, clutches a rosary of polished bone, its beads worn smooth by devotion. Her hands tremble, not from cold, but from tales of the devastation brought by Ottoman forces. Mother Theodora, the abbess, stands resolute, her grey eyes fixed on the crucifix above. "God is our refuge," she says, her voice steady despite the fear. But the sisters see the truth in her lined face. God may watch, but men shape the horrors of this earth. The gates shatter before dawn. Janissaries, their armor gleaming, storm the courtyard. Icons crack under boots, candles sputter out, and the air is thick with the smell of burned manuscripts and shattered relics. The nuns are dragged from their prayers, their habits torn, their hymns drowned by shouts in a foreign tongue. Anna's rosary scatters across the stone, beads lost in the chaos. Mother Theodora raises her voice, quoting psalms until a scimitar ends her life, her blood staining the tiles where candles once burned. What happens next isn't in the history books you skimmed in school. It's not etched on cathedral walls or sung in hymns. It's buried in forgotten letters, in the bones of those who never returned, in the silence of a world that turned away. Here on Brutal History, we tear through the archives, dragging truth from the shadows. Missionary reports, Ottoman slave ledgers, Orthodox chronicles. Every view, every like, every subscription pulls another voice from the void. So, step into that convent, because the bells are silent and the real story is about to bleed. To understand the nuns' fate, you need to see the empire that overwhelmed them with disciplined force. By 1464, the Ottomans had crushed Constantinople, stripped the Hagia Sophia of its crosses, and scattered the Byzantine world. Mehmed II, the conqueror, knew victory required more than land. It demanded the erasure of identity. Every church, every cross, every vow was a challenge to his rule. Bosnia, with its defiant princes and stubborn faith, stood as a wound that refused to heal. Every convent was a bastion, every nun a symbol of resistance. The convent of St. Euphemia was no stronghold. Its walls, built for prayer, not siege, collapsed under battering rams. The sisters were herded into the open, their veils ripped away, exposing faces pale with terror. Soldiers mocked their faith, spitting on icons and trampling crosses into the dirt. Mother Theodora, her face bruised, stood defiant, chanting scripture until her blood marked the ground, a warning to the village below. Resistance meant death. Younger nuns, Anna among them, faced a grimmer fate. The Ottoman commander, a bey with eyes like flint, surveyed them with a merchant's cold calculation. His orders were swift, executed with precision. The sisters were bound with coarse rope, their wrists bleeding, and marched south toward the slave markets of Salonika. The journey was an ordeal of relentless torment. Days of hunger and dust bled into nights of violation, the soldiers taking what they wanted in the silence of the Ottoman camp. Anna's faith, once steadfast, faltered under the trauma of violation. She whispered psalms, but they felt hollow, pierced by her sisters' cries. The Ottomans understood the power of symbols. Nuns, with their sacred vows, were the heart of Christian resistance. To defile them was to shatter communities, to silence bells across 100 villages. Venetian spies, scribbling in hurried dispatches, called it deliberate, break the holy, and the faithful would kneel. The nuns were stripped of their names, called infidel or worse, their bodies exposed to jeers in Salonika's crowded market. Anna, her hair shorn, stood on a wooden platform, her tattered shift barely covering her. Bidders haggled, their voices a blur of greed. A merchant from Bursa bought her for his household, while others were destined for harems or labor in distant provinces. Anna's days became a grind of toil and silence. Her master, a wealthy trader, saw her as a trophy, a Christian nun humbled in his service. The household was a maze of opulence and cruelty, its marble floors cold under her bare feet. She worked alongside other slaves, their eyes hollow, their stories locked behind silent lips. The air carried the scent of spices and fear, the master's wives watching her with suspicion, their words sharp as daggers. Anna's hands, once soft from prayer, grew calloused from the loom, but her spirit clung to fragments of faith. She scratched crosses out of the wood, hidden beneath threads, and murmured hymns when the house slept. Each act was a quiet defiance, a refusal to let her soul be erased. Sister Maria, another nun from the convent, was sold to a pasha's harem in Edirne. Anna heard whispers of her through a Greek slave girl who passed messages like contraband. Maria had smuggled a tiny icon of Saint Euphemia, sewn into her rags, and prayed over it nightly. She'd once spilled lamp oil on a carpet, claiming clumsiness, though the fire that followed nearly burned the pasha's chambers. Such stories, rare and perilous, were lifelines for Anna, proof that the Ottoman machine, vast as it was, could not crush every soul. The empire's cruelty was no accident. It was calculated. In the Balkans, convents were not just buildings, but symbols of a faith that refused to bow. When Niš fell in 1459, a convent's nuns were buried alive to avoid capture, their bones later found by shepherds, still clutching rosaries. In Serbia, during the 1470s, villagers watched as sisters were paraded, their habits torn, their bodies exposed to jeering crowds. By the 16th century, as the empire tightened its grip, such atrocities grew rarer, but rebellions reignited them. The 1595 Wallachian revolt saw convents raided, nuns sold in Istanbul's markets, their fates scrawled in hushed Habsburg letters. Anna's days in Bursa stretched into years, each a test of endurance. She learned scraps of Turkish, enough to navigate her master's world. The household was a microcosm of the empire, rich, ruthless, built on the conquered. She saw other slaves come and go, a Georgian boy beaten for dropping a tray, a Circassian girl taken to the master's chambers and never seen again. Anna's own suffering was quieter but no less heavy. The memory of the convent's fall haunted her. Mother Theodora's blood, the scattered rosary, the cries of her sisters. she carried them like stones, each sharpening her resolve. One night, a traveling merchant brought news of a rebellion in the north. Christian villages had risen, burning Ottoman outposts. The master's household buzzed with fear, and Anna saw her chance. She overheard plans to sell her to a pasha in Istanbul, her value as a Christian trophy still high. During a chaotic market day, as carts clogged the streets of Bursa, she slipped away, hiding in a wagon bound for Venetian Ragusa. The journey was a gauntlet. Hunger gnawed her bones, cold bit her skin, and the fear of pursuit never faded. She prayed silently, her lips moving as they had in the convent, clinging to a verse from Psalms. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Ragusa was a beacon, a Christian outpost beyond the empire's reach. Anna reached it half-starved, her body scarred but her spirit unbroken. A small Orthodox monastery took her in, its walls smelling of incense and safety. The nuns there, wary but kind, gave her a new habit and a new name, Sister Eudokia, after the martyr who endured. She took new vows, her voice steady despite the weight of memory. She taught children to read, her hands tracing letters as they once traced crosses. Her stories of faith, of survival, became a quiet rebellion, a way to keep St. Euphemia's bell ringing in her heart. But the scars remained. Anna dreamed of her sisters, their faces fading with time. Sister Maria, the fire starter, was a ghost in rumors. Some said she'd escaped, others that she died in chains. The others, scattered across the empire, were names she whispered in prayer. Euphemia, Theodora, the countless unnamed. Their suffering was no accident. It was a weapon meant to break Christendom's spirit. The Ottomans targeted nuns because they were symbols, their chastity a defiance of conquest. To defile them was to silence bells, to shatter communities, to erase a faith that refused to die. Yet, the nuns fought back in their own way. Across the empire, stories surfaced, sisters who hid relics in their rags, who sang hymns in slave pens, who faced death rather than convert. In a Bulgarian convent raided in 1470, a nun named Theodora was said to have cursed her captors before being burned, her words echoing in village lore. In Wallachia, during the 1590s, nuns smuggled scriptures to rebels, their courage noted in Orthodox chronicles. These defiant acts amid oppression were proof that the empire could not crush every soul. The broader tragedy shaped history's underbelly. Venetian diplomats wrote of nuns paraded in markets, their bodies exposed to break Christian morale. Ottoman tax ledgers, cold and precise, recorded slaves as Christian women, their vows erased in ink. Archaeological finds, burned convent stones, mass graves, bear witness to the violence, while survivor tales, rare and fragmented, whisper of hope. The Ottoman strategy was clear: destroy the holy, and the faithful would falter. But faith, like fire, found ways to endure. Anna's life in Ragusa was quiet, but not silent. She taught, she prayed, she remembered. In her cell, she carved a cross into the wall, its lines deep as her scars. The bells of St. Euphemia were gone, their metal melted into Ottoman coins, but their echo lived in her. She spoke of her sisters to the children, her voice soft but unyielding, passing on their names, their courage. The Ottoman Empire's shadow stretched far, but so did the light of those who endured, a light no sword could dim. This isn't just a story. It's a truth the world tried to bury. The nuns of St. Euphemia and countless others were not just victims. They were warriors, their faith a rebellion against an empire's might. On Brutal History, we don't let these voices fade. We dig through the archives, missionary letters, Ottoman records, the bones of the forgotten, to bring them back. Every view, every like, every subscription keeps their story alive. The bells may be silent, but their echo is ours to carry.